Hello, Gators, and welcome to Week 5 of the Oxrageous podcast. We are 4 weeks into the season, and we are now 4-0. And most of us are still walking on sunshine after one of the most amazing comebacks ever. And let's face it, it wouldn't have been nearly as exciting if it hadn't been a rivalry game. I mean, imagine if it had been someone like Missouri would have been playing. It would have been great, but it wouldn't have been the same. I mean, to extend a streak in that fashion is what dreams are made of in the college football world. And as bad as things have been for the Gator Nation in the last 5 years, they've been infinitely worse, and for twice as long for Tennessee. A team that almost seems cursed at this point. I mean, I read where one of their fans congratulated Coach Mack on the beginning of his own undefeated career against them. That's how they feel. One thing's for sure. The last 2 years were by far their best window for breaking that streak. And they blew it in epic fashion. It really wouldn't surprise me to see the streak hit 20 or more. And after saying that, I can dismiss thinking about Tennessee until next September, when they'll inevitably start proclaiming that we are going down. Maybe they'll even checkerboard their stadium for us again. Now, on to the Gators. One thing that's been on my mind that I haven't seen discussed much this week was Treon Harris's suspension and the impact it had on the game on Saturday. In my opinion, the good impact it had on the game. Over these first few weeks, I have been harping on the fact that if Greer is the future, then he needs to be left in the games to take his lumps, and rotating him out and pulling him out for Harris could, delay his development a little bit. And on Saturday again, he played like a freshman. He was hesitant in the pocket. He ran too much again. Had some accuracy issues a little bit wild. We couldn't score any points. But ask yourself this: if Treon Harris had been available, does Mack put him in that second half? And it's hard to say for sure, but I think he would have. And if he does that, not only do I think that our miracle comeback doesn't happen, but that Greer misses out on the chance to put the team on his shoulders and make the plays he needed to make to win the game. I'm telling you, Will Greer got about the equivalent of 10 games experience just in those last 2 drives on Saturday. They were that important. And not just for him, but for his teammates, who have a newfound respect and belief in him that they may not have had him before. And the guy's just a freshman. How good could he be the next 2 years? So I think Treon Harris did a huge service to our Gators by making himself ineligible. He took away any temptation that Coach Mack had to put him in, and it paid off. I wonder how Coach Mack feels about that. Let's go to your questions. Okay, UF Gator 812 asked, was Greer unleashed, or was the passing game resurgence more of a result of Tennessee playing prevent? Is it a sign of things to come? As far as the first part of the question, I think Greer was unleashed because he had to be unleashed. We were down. We needed 2 touchdowns in the last 9 minutes of the game. We really couldn't run the ball anymore at that point. But Tennessee did help us out tremendously by going into a prevent and letting Greer get into a rhythm. I mean, I'll never understand it because so many coaches do it. Probably most coaches do it. They get a lead and they go into prevent defense, especially when you got a freshman quarterback in there. They really need to be pressured because they make mistakes. But the Tennessee screwed up. They laid back and let him throw. They would have been much better off. They would have much better served blitzing the crap out of Greer at the end of that game. And let's face it, Tennessee played not to lose that entire game. If you'll remember, they had 2 very short 4th downs in which they kicked field goals. And in both of those drives, our defense was on their heels and couldn't stop anything. And they would have gotten those 4th downs probably easily. Instead, Butch Jones, let's take the 3, and he kicks 2 field goals. He did us a big favor on those 2 drives. Cut us a break. So Butch Jones coached like a coward on Saturday. There's a reason why he's 1-16 against ranked teams. He plays not to lose. How can those hillbillies in Tennessee be expected to break the streak if they won't take any chances? So, next question. With seeing more of a passing game from Greer, can we perhaps see more success in the run game? And that was a question by Tennessee Gator. Well, the run game certainly needs a lot more improvement. Kelvin Taylor was our entire run game. No other running backs got a carry. I don't know if the other two are, I think there's some protection issues, there's some ball security issues. I think one of them was banged up. But the point was the coaching staff obviously felt neither one of them were ready to play. And Taylor did get 100 yards on the ground, but that's a bit misleading because he had a 47-yard run there to start the game. And he only got 55 yards on 18 carries the rest of the game, which is only about 3 yards a carry, which is pretty lousy. And I still think it comes down mainly to run blocking more than anything else. Although there is no question that if Greer can continue being a downfield passing threat, it's going to help tremendously. He definitely opened some eyes around the SEC in that fourth quarter, I think, kind of serving notice that he's here. But the run game, it's going to continue to be a focus. You know, I think play calling could help too. One thing I know so many of us noticed was on 2nd and long, we ran the ball over and over and over. I understand the coaching staff is trying to make a more manageable 3rd down, but if the other team knows a run is coming, you're only going to get 1 or 2 yards anyway. So it's become a wasted play, you know. Coaches, please, let's try some play action on 2nd and long against Ole Miss this weekend. All right, next question. Can I get your thoughts on the composure these young Gators displayed during crunch time last night, specifically on the offensive side of the ball? What do you think it does for them moving forward? MGM Gator asked that question. I've already touched on a little of this, but I'll expand on it. I think winning a game like that can impact the rest of the season in a very big way, just like losing it can. I mean, Tennessee lost a game like that, and I think it's going to impact them negatively the rest of the way. It can ruin your whole season losing like that. I think coaches do the best they can to install confidence in the players, but there's only so much they can do. It's what happens on Saturday that really earns players the confidence. The important thing is I think the players are actually starting to believe they can win. And I know that was a big focus of Coach Mack and the rest of the staff. But because it's been a challenge. After the Muschamp era, instilling confidence has been a challenge. There's a lot of doubt in their minds still. But confidence can be the difference between a 7-win season and a 10-win season. It can make that big of an impact. I mean, think of all the mistakes we've made on both sides of the ball, yet we're still 4-0. The guys found ways to win. What do you think would happen if we could actually cut down on some mistakes? All right, next question. What's with our defensive tackling this year? In that arm tackling, overruns, and emphasis on trying to strip the ball seems to supersede good old breakdown, wrap up, and go through your man techniques. That was a question by Gator Stud. Yeah, tell me about it, you know. I'm not the only one who saw flashes of Tommy Frazier during that game on Saturday, back in the championship game, January of '96. I can still see our guys bouncing off from right and left, trying to strip the ball, letting him run for another 20 yards. We went through a stretch there where Dobbs just could not be stopped running the football. The tackling was atrocious. The wrap-ups were atrocious. That is when we could get to him. The other side of it was we were jumping and diving at air. And, you know, Dobbs is not Michael Vick. Then we had guys like Hargraves trying to strip the ball instead of make the tackle, letting him get another 10, 20 yards after the fact. You know, and the over-pursuit was maddening as well. It was like these players had never seen a cutback before. You'd think you'd have Dobbs for a big loss, and then he breaks it around the side for 62-yard run. 62 yards. This guy had a 62-yard run and a 58-yard catch for Josh freaking Dobbs. And yet, Tennessee still found a way to lose with that. But yeah, Florida has Leonard Fournette and Nick Chubb coming up here in the next month. probably the two guys leading the Heisman voting right now. And if they tackle even half that bad, those guys are going to rush for 300 yards. What we saw was painful and easily the most glaring problem of the game. Fortunately, I think a lot of that stuff is correctable and can be cleaned up. But not being able to stop the run is a death blow in the SEC, so we've got to get better at that. All right, next question. The question I have is special teams. Where has that gone? The kick and punt coverage has been suspect. Gracias to Jorge for making a huge stop during the game. What about Harden and Powell and the overall state of the kicking game? As questioned by Gator Diddy. And first off, I got to get a little credit to Gator Diddy there for making an observation that a lot of us had forgotten, including me until he brought it up here, that Evan Berry of Tennessee took back a kickoff, and he was almost certainly gone when our new little kicker, Jorge, just jumped right in front of him full speed, fearlessly, which is a play you almost never seen a kicker make, and he saved a touchdown. May have saved the game for us, for that matter. But he didn't attempt a field goal, so I really don't know how well he kicks. As far as Harden, though, I just have a feeling that Coach Mack approached him before the game last week and told him he was hurt. You know, Harden, you're hurt this week. I am? Yeah, you're hurt. And, it's probably for the best. I don't know if we'll see Harden again. I have a feeling he's going to be hurt for a while. But overall, the special teams has been below average. Coverage has been mediocre. The return game has been pretty lousy too. And I love Brandon Powell, but I don't think he's got the mindset and the vision to be a kick returner. It seems like he's bringing balls out of the end zone that he shouldn't be bringing out, and then he can't see his lanes very well, and he seems to be running into the backs of his own guys or just right into the pile. So I have to believe we can find someone better to return kicks. Leave Powell out there playing receiver. And on the same note, let's recap the season so far. Our passing, mediocre. We've got a freshman who's played mostly like a freshman. Running game, below average. We can't block. Defense, mediocre. It's been less than what we were expecting. We can't tackle. And the special teams, lousy. And yet we're 4-0 and keep finding ways to win. It really is a great sign. When we put it all together, we're going to make some noise. Okay, question. And this is by Navigator. So, Kentucky has now beaten South Carolina and Missouri. East Carolina took down Virginia Tech. Our Gators beat them both and pulled out a miracle in the swamp against Tennessee. At the time, those Kentucky and East Carolina wins didn't look very impressive. How do you feel about those wins now and what it means for this Gator team moving forward into the toughest part of the schedule? It's just another positive sign. Kentucky's playing solid football. It's really their best team in a long time, and East Carolina keeps surprising people. We played pretty lousy in both those games and still won. I keep beating this drum because I think it's important for the fans to start getting their confidence back, just like the players. We've been so beaten down the last 5 years. No one wants to believe we can be a force again. So many people don't want to get excited because they're afraid of being let down. It's like they're watching games under a blanket, with just their eyes peering out. Gators, the boogeyman known as Will Muschamp is now in Auburn. He's their problem now. He's no longer living in your closet. Get out from under the blanket and start believing again. Okay, next two questions, and I'll read them back to back because they really follow the same lines here. First one is, do you think Ole Miss is overrated, or are they legitimately a top 3 team? Okeechobee Joe asked that. And second question by the Big Claw. Ole Miss struggled with Vandy last week. Was this because of Ole Miss not preparing for Vandy? Was this because Ole Miss not preparing, or Vandy actually found something that worked against the Ole Miss offense? Well, so let's talk about Ole Miss a little bit. And let's take a look. First, let's take a little look at their stats so far this year. Now, they scored somewhere around 150 points to start the season against 2 cupcakes. So that's certainly going to make their numbers a little more impressive. Right now, they're ranked 11th in the country in total offense, and that breaks down to 12th in passing and 48th in rushing. The first two games were against jokes, so it's really the last two games that I looked at a little closer, Alabama and Vanderbilt. As far as Bama, you have to realize how bad Bama gave away that game. With 5 turnovers that led to 24 points. Chad Kelly, who's the quarterback for Ole Miss, was completely shut down in the first half and ended up throwing for 300 yards in the second half. And that win also included the luckiest 66-yard touchdown pass you're ever going to see. It was actually a horrible play by by Kelly, who was under pressure and threw it completely up for grabs. It should have been 6 the other way. So despite all that, Ole Miss only wins this game by 6 points. They certainly couldn't run on Alabama. They had 92 yards on 32 carries. On the other side, Bama rolled up 500 yards on them. So, despite the 5 turnovers, the lucky touchdown, they only managed a 6-point win. If Bama takes better care of the ball, they win that game easily. So that's the Bama game. Let's take a look at the Vandy game. Now, I didn't watch the game. I just read about it and looked at the stats. It sounds like Ole Miss played like us during that game. Interceptions, fumbles. They couldn't score in the red zone. They had to settle for 3 field goal attempts inside the 20. The game was tied at 13 late in the third quarter when Ole Miss finally pulled away for good. Kelly did throw for 300 yards, which is something he's made a habit of this year. So to answer the original question, this Ole Miss team is very overrated. You know, there's no question they have some talent. But honestly, what have they done this season? They ran up the score on 2 cupcakes. They beat a Bama team who turned the ball over 5 times. And they played a very ugly game against Vanderbilt, which is the worst team in the SEC. So, are we really supposed to let our sphincters tighten up over this team? I don't think so. This game is very, very, very winnable, especially with us getting our home field advantage back. The Swamp is again becoming a tough place to play. You know, and Vegas seems to agree with me because Ole Miss only opened as 6.5-point favorites, which is a lot lower than people thought it would be. This team's really the opposite of Tennessee. Tennessee could run and could not throw. Ole Miss can throw and can't run. So the key to the entire game is Chad Kelly. We have to get to Chad Kelly, as he has a tendency to do some stupid things with the football. If we let him stand around back there, it could be a long day for us. Defensively, Ole Miss is ranked 52nd in the country, and that breaks down to 60th against the run and 53rd against the pass. So again, not terribly intimidating numbers. I don't know how Florida's coaching staff is going to approach this game. Will we get a little more aggressive throwing the ball after what happened last week? I don't know. Greer's still a freshman, and Coach Mack may not want to push his luck. I have a feeling Ole Miss is going to sell out against the run and try to make Will Greer beat them. But they may want to be careful for what they wish for. So, I started last week asking the Magic 8 Ball, who gave me a non-answer. So let's try to get a real answer out of the Magic 8 Ball this week. Magic 8 Ball, will the Florida Gators beat Ole Miss? All right. Outlook, not so good. Okay, so along with the rest of the nation, the Magic 8 Ball doesn't have a lot of faith in us. But you know, it didn't say no. It just said the outlook wasn't so good. But we already knew that, didn't we? All right, last question. What will our October win-loss record be? I think 2-2, but leaning towards 3-1. And Plays with Trucks asked that question. Now, those 4 teams are Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU, and Georgia. At the beginning of the season, a lot of us assumed 0-4 against that stretch. But then when everyone started figuring, well, maybe we could beat Missouri. You know, they really look like garbage this year. Now we got some more people thinking we could maybe win this week and perhaps beat Georgia again. LSU, nobody wins at LSU. No one in the world thinks we can win at LSU. You know something about LSU? They're a one-man show right now. You know, they're another team that can't pass the ball. You know, and overall they haven't played that great. I sat there and watched them struggle against Syracuse last Saturday. I don't know what our record will be in that 4-game stretch. What I do know is that they're all winnable, including LSU. It is a weak year in college football. You look at the entire top 25, and I'm not even worried about that. You look at the SEC, and while the West is a lot better than the East, which is a disaster, even the West is showing a lot of chinks in their armor this year. It's a down year, I think, nationwide. All right, well, that was a lot of talking. All I know is it's great to be sitting here talking about a Florida team that can play real football again, sloppy football. But it's nothing like we've seen the last 4 years. And it's not going to be sloppy forever, The coaching staff and the players are still getting to know each other at this point and getting more comfortable. We're going to put it all together one of these weeks and beat the socks off somebody. And it could happen here in one of these October games. So keep the faith. And come on over to GatorChatter.com. If it's Gator related, it's being discussed at GatorChatter.com. There's no reason to go to any other boards if you want to talk about the Gators. As a reminder, you can always subscribe to these videos on YouTube, or for the audio version, you can download the free Stitcher app and have it delivered to your mobile device. It is time to have faith again, Gator fans. Come on out from under the blanket. The boogeyman is in Auburn now. We're playing real football again. So, everyone have a great week, and my next podcast will be breaking down our victory over Ole Miss. Go Gators!